Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly roundup for March 10th, 2023. We're going to cover some Colorado news stories you may have missed. Let's start off by looking at this dailymail.com article from March 4th, 2023. Colorado Elementary School is exposed for secretly transitioning student as damning leaked internal emails reveal administrator telling assistant principal to lie to parents. Leaked emails from a Colorado elementary school revealed administrators going behind a parent's back to secretly transition a student. Laurel Elementary School Assistant Principal Amanda Pawelski and Poudre School District Chief Equity Officer Marlena Gross Taylor were caught in leaked emails discussing going behind a parent's back to instruct an elementary school student by their preferred pronouns. So this is what's going on in Colorado public schools. It's a lot different than when I went to school and my peers, people my age. It's a totally different animal out there. It's shocking to a lot of people, but this is the reality of the world we live in right now. So here we go. Here is Chief Equity Officer. That's right. The school district is a Chief Equity Officer, Marlena Gross Taylor. And here's the assistant principal here, Amanda Pawelski. So they were going behind parents' backs, of course, with the district's LGBTQIA plus coordinator to circumvent parents and help this child change their gender. So check out these emails, check out this article. Um, it's the reality of what's happening in our schools. A great advertisement is why you should homeschool, alternative school, and get your kids out of government schools because you don't know as a parent what's actually happening to your child. Moving on to a related story, Kim Munson Show, kimmunson.com. School mental health surveys are a tool for expanding pharmaceutical drugs to students. March 5th, 2023, Pam Long. School mental health surveys, screenings, and assessments are third-party data collection tools used to refer students to services which potentially will label students with disorders requiring psychiatric drugs and flag students for misconduct for the rest of their life. Wow. So there's a lot of mental health legislation going on in the state legislature. Of course, mental health issues have been going on in Colorado for a long time due to many issues. But of course, the COVID era that we saw 3 years ago really set off a tragedy, an epidemic of a crisis, really, of youth suicide and youth mental health problems. So this article does a great job of going through a lot of the legislation this year. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many bills are being pushed by Colorado Democrats this year related to mental health, related to schools, related to divvying out some of that state money. From the article, Colorado is in the process of fast tracking a dystopian mental health framework that encompasses all of society to exponentially expand prescription psychiatric drug use. Wow. HB 1153 commissions a study and report for a statewide support system or referral system for people with serious mental illness. HB 1130 increases drug coverage for serious mental health issues. HB 1070 reduces the post-degree supervised practice time for licensure of medical health professionals. More diagnosis, more prescribers, and more drugs are on the way to students, veterans, prisoners, defendants, and low-income individuals. If COVID was phase one of the pharmaceutical commandeering of state governments, then mental health legislation is phase two of the pharmaceutical internment of the public. Colorado Democrats now seek to further promote the pharmaceutical industry for mental health crisis created by their pandemic policies. The vaccine mandates and blanket treatment protocols of the COVID era provide a glimpse into the one size fits all type of tyrannical medical system being created. COVID lockdowns and school closures, which isolated healthy people, were not an ethical application of quarantining the sick. Definitely. So this is a great article. Pam Long did a phenomenal job. Big kudos to Kim Munson for covering this issue. She's been a big liberty leader in the state of Colorado. But as you can see, what they do at these schools is they give these kids these surveys and they give these kids these tests basically to evaluate their mental health. Depending on the test, these bureaucrats, these school officials are going to refer your children to take drugs, to take pharmaceutical drugs because they think that's the solution. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's a big pharma solution to every problem that kids are facing these days. It's absolutely horrific and probably causing a lot of long-term problems as well as the short-term issues that go along with taking pharmaceutical drugs, especially for young children, developing children. So take a look at this article, really wake up people to what's going on in our public schools and do everything you can to get your kids out of government schools and speak out, go to your school board meetings. Let's move on. Related to Kim Munson's article there about mental health, as Pam Long stated in the article, COVID was a cause of a lot of the problems we're seeing these days. So this week I put out this article, kind of reflections 3 years later on Colorado's COVID response. Hard to believe it's been 3 years, but unfortunately, as I'll say here, there's still a lot of fallout from what happened during those years. So I'll just read a little bit of the article here. 3 years after the March 2020 shutdowns, the legacy of COVID era policies are still haunting Colorado. History will show the COVID policies pushed by the governor, state health officials, and the federal government not only have failed to achieve their goals, but caused tremendous harm. Communities suffered, businesses failed, and many individuals were pushed over the edge. Drug overdoses, suicide, domestic violence, and record crime are the legacy of the state's COVID policies. It must not be forgotten how destructive these policies were, and the names of those responsible must be remembered. Sadly, after 3 years, politicians and state health officials have not been held accountable for their malfeasance. These COVID policies tore a rip in the fabric of our society, fracturing communities and causing real harm to individuals. And it may be easier to sweep the destruction caused by the COVID policies under the rug, but pretending this loss of life and livelihood didn't happen is a slap in the face to those who suffered. Thankfully, there's also been some good news that has come out of the COVID tyranny. But before we get to that, let's review the tragedies and crimes of the COVID era. So in this article, I go through reminding people, I guess, of some of the problems that we suffered during the COVID era, some of the specifics that we faced, just how extreme the government's rhetoric was, attacking businesses, going after individuals, and really pushing people into drug use, to suicide, to despair, to starvation, I mean, to missing doctor's appointments, to all these other health problems that became prominent that hadn't been around for a while. Um, of course, crimes, violence, drug use. So check out the article. I know it's a little depressing, but we got to recognize that what happened in the past. We can never let this happen again. And we need to hold these people accountable. The people who tore a hole in our society, people who are causing all this mental health crisis we're now seeing in the children and in adults throughout society, the record crime, the youth violence, all of it. A lot of it was going on before COVID, but COVID definitely accelerated the major problems that our society was seeing. So check it out. And, let's learn from the past and never let this happen again. Moving on. From Complete Colorado, page 2, great website. There is no good reason to socialize Broomfield's trash hauling. March 4th, 2023, Thomas J. Bruno. The Broomfield City Council is again trying to socialize trash collection. We better not fall for it. Past councils tried and were repelled by public opinion. The reasons include fewer trucks on the street, less noise, safety of children and pets, etc. I've written against this absurdity since 2004. This latest intrusion is justified on the altar of zero waste. There are two issues. One, city takeover of a now private marketplace, and two, the dream of total recycling, wish cycling. Council opted against a ballot initiative because such measures were declined elsewhere, i.e., they were afraid to ask voters. Yet they insist everyone they talk to agrees with them. They chose the ordinance path. We are so stupid it must be rammed down our throats like a toddler getting Tylenol. More condescending and insulting is their plan to educate us. I support free markets and small government, whose role is not to control us but to provide public goods, such as first responders, courts, etc. I spent 40 years as a scientist in government laboratories, working with countless government agencies. I've never seen government function better than the private sector, especially in picking winners and losers. The expression Beltway Bandit is familiar, applicable at all levels. Imposition of a monopoly will neither be more efficient nor cost effective. So, very true. I really hope that Broomfield citizens are able to stand up and speak out. Fortunately, here in Arvada, the city government has done the same thing. They were going to ask voters, voters didn't want it, so they decided to pass it themselves. It's been a total disaster for a lot of reasons. They're forcing people to get subsidized city trash. If not, you have to pay a fee every month. It's absolutely ridiculous and an insult to our dignity and our pocketbooks. Of course, this is going on across the state where these out of state bureaucrats move here, get elected to city council, and of course want to turn it like their hometowns in California or otherwhere. otherwise. So check it out. There's no good reason to socialize Broomfield's trash hauling. Here, here. Moving on. Colorado Sun article from March 3rd, 2023. Landowner will close access to two Colorado 14ers after lawmakers rejected legislation limiting liability. So, of course, to get to 14ers to peak some of these amazing Colorado mountains, you do have to go on some private property. But if these private property owners face liability, then it's probably not worth the risk to allow people on their property. So the article says the owner of three Colorado 14er peaks outside Alma says he will close access to hikers after state senators on Wednesday killed a bill that would have limited the liability of property owners who allow public access to private land. I have been advised by my own attorneys on several occasions that I am rolling the dice by leaving these peaks open, said John Reber, who has spent years working with the town of Alma, the Forest Service, and Colorado hiking groups to keep trails on his land on Mount Democrat and Mount Lincoln open for nearly 30,000 visitors hiking the DeCalibron Loop every year. Now, I do plan to close the 14ers for access. Without any regulatory support, I can no longer take on the level of risk in case someone gets hurt and wants to sue me. So pretty interesting. Of course, we had a good Liberty leader. Mark Baisley introduced this bill in the state legislature, Senate Bill 103. So we'll take a quick look at here, which would have protected property owners from liability on private land for damages incurred by people who are recreating. So it was a good bill. Mike Lynch, a couple other legislators on there. And unfortunately, of course, the Colorado Senate Judiciary Committee, primarily composed of Democrats, killed the bill. So losing access to some 14ers in our overly lawsuit happy society. Let's move on. Another Complete Colorado article. This is a great little article written by John Cooke. Unelected Senator Kevin Priola disregards Weld County for March 9th, 2023. So John Cooke is a proud service record here in Colorado. If you are reading this, chances are you're more aware of the horrific policy coming out of the Colorado Capitol than most citizens. However, do your family, friends, and neighbors know? You also know that I proudly served the people of Weld County as your sheriff for 12 years, and then 8 years as your state senator for Senate District 13. In each capacity, I fought against the progressive left that has seized control of our state and threatened our personal and economic freedom. With term limits, I retired from the state Senate when the gavel dropped on the 2023 legislative session. Unfortunately, the new senator representing SD 13 is Kevin Priola, D. Adams County. He claims he's been representing us since being drawn into the district after redistricting took place post 2020 census, yet he was drawn into the district, not elected from the district. Color me skeptical about Senator Priola's commitment to the Weld County residents of Senate District 13. The party fluid senator who transitioned from Republican to Democrat just last year, after Republicans spent millions in 2020 getting him reelected to his previous district, can't be bothered to meet his new constituents in Weld County. All of you who call Greeley, Evans, LaSalle, Milliken, Gilchrist, Platteville, and Fort Lupton home, it seems that Senator Priola just isn't that into you. So you definitely got to check out this article. John Cooke tears Kevin Priola apart. Kevin Priola, of course, is one of the most authoritarian legislators in our state capital, currently pushing new taxes on alcohol and any other tax increase and restriction the guy can think of. One of the biggest targets going into next election cycle is getting Kevin Priola out. So check out that article by John Cooke from CompleteColorado.com. Let's move on. Colorado lawmaker proposes bill to limit arrests for low-level offenses. How do you think that'll work out? Isn't it San Francisco and some other places tried that? So this article is from March 6th, 2023. A bill making its way through Colorado state legislature has some law enforcement agencies worried, while those behind the legislation believe it's misunderstood. House Bill 231169 in its current form would prohibit a police officer from arresting someone, quote, solely on the alleged commission of a petty offense, end quote, excluding petty theft, a drug petty offense, and a Class 2 traffic misdemeanor. The bill has already experienced a number of revisions, but some petty offenses that would not qualify for an arrest under the bill are trespassing, abandoning a motor vehicle, and disorderly conduct. Interesting. So we'll see how this goes, but just more efforts to keep criminals on the streets, I suppose. I mean, it's not a good look. It's not a good look for Democrats here in 2023 when crime is at record levels to limit arrests. I don't think voters are going to be too happy with that. Unfortunately, voters would probably say arrest more people. So interesting to see this criminal justice battle still being waged to this day and how this will affect upcoming elections. Crime and safety have been seen as one of the most important issues. Of course, a recent poll for Denver voters facing their mayor election coming up said crime was one of the biggest issues they're facing in their communities. Of course, it is. And it's interesting to see that Colorado Democrats like Jennifer Bacon, hey, somebody's trespassing, somebody is disorderly conduct, we don't necessarily need to arrest them. All right, let's move on. 5280. Why was a man who stopped a mass shooting shot and killed by Arvada police? So Johnny Hurley was a hero. Johnny Hurley saved lives on June 21st, 2021, when he took out a potential mass shooter, a guy who wanted to. Johnny Hurley stopped a guy who wanted to cause a lot of harm to the community, who was targeting people and walking the streets of downtown Arvada with intent to kill. Johnny Hurley was a quick responder who stopped him and saved his life. So this is from 5280, March 2023. Read a little bit of the article here. Johnny Hurley often thought what he would do if he heard gunshots. He discussed it with friends, his sister, and his partner. But it wasn't just idle talk. By summer 2021, the longtime chef had spent nearly a year training for the possibility, working with former military personnel, learning the intricacies of his Springfield Hellcat handgun. The 40-year-old carried a gun with him nearly everywhere he went. At some point, he was certain his time for action would come. On June 21st, 2021, shotgun blasts echoed through Old Town Arvada around 1:30 p.m. It was a warm Monday, and as on most summer days, the Denver suburb's quaint commercial district was buzzing with activity. Friends took lunch together on patios, coworkers met over coffees and near the town square, and children played in the water fountains. Now the afternoon had given way to chaos. People ran, ducked under bistro tables, and dove for cover behind parked vehicles. Johnny Hurley heard the gunshots too. He was shopping at Arvada Army Navy surplus, less than a football field's distance from where Officer Beasley had been shot and killed. Hurley had been shopping for new work boots and wanted to purchase a fishing license, but now he was looking out the storefront window and saw the assailant walking away. He has a gun, Hurley said, pointing to a man in a distance. Dressed in a red t-shirt, brown pants, and a red baseball cap he wore backward, Hurley ran out the store's front door. He pulled his Hellcat out of his holster, dashed toward the town square, and crouched behind a brick wall. He asked a bystander if he knew where the shooter had gone. The bystander shrugged and pointed in the general direction of the assailant's path. Hurley peered around the barrier and saw the man in black walking toward him through a parking lot. The man was carrying an AR-15 in his right hand. Hurley ducked back for a moment and steadied himself as the gunman drew closer. Hurley stepped out, aimed, and fired 6 times. So Johnny Hurley was able to stop a criminal in his tracks, a criminal who had been targeting police officers, a criminal who wanted to kill more people. And unfortunately, Arvada police mistook Johnny Hurley for one of the assailants and killed him on that day. So Johnny Hurley must be remembered. He's a hero. He did the right thing. He stopped a bad guy in his tracks, and Arvada police failed. Arvada police failed the community that day when they killed Johnny Hurley. Let's move on. This article from the DenverGazette.com, March 6, 2023. Colorado Democrats pushing for assault weapons ban face uphill climb to Polis's desk. So, of course, after talking about a hero, somebody who used their firearm to stop a criminal, I just wanted to bring up the fact that crime is out of control, as we've seen, as we know. And of course, the Democrats' number one solution is to take guns away from law abiding people, because only the law abiding are going to obey their ridiculous laws. And there'll be more criminals able to commit more harm with these Democratic policies. The long-awaited bill to ban so-called assault weapons surfaced in the House late Friday afternoon and has already lost a key supporter, raising questions about the viability of its path to the governor's desk. Representative Andrew Bosnecker, D. Fort Collins, was listed as a first prime sponsor in previous drafts, but his name is no longer on House Bill 1230, which is sponsored by Representative Elizabeth Epps, D. Denver, and Senator Rhonda Fields, D. Aurora. The measure may not have enough support from Democrats, including by some leaders on this issue, and the measure is in danger of dividing the Democratic Gun Violence Prevention Caucus. So, in a way, this is good news. In a way, it's important to see that the pushback from the public, and most importantly, I suppose, from the governor and from Democratic lawmakers to not support on extreme legislation like this. This assault weapons ban is a gun ban that's totally unconstitutional, that has been struck down in court before. So Democrats know it's not viable. And let's hope they smart up and pull this bill or kill it in committee. That would be a great thing for the people of Colorado. But just keep an eye out, people. This is what our politicians are capable of, is taking away guns away from the law-abiding. Let's take a look at some of the gun bills that are probably going to pass this year. Proposed new gun laws advanced in Colorado Senate Committee, March 8th, 2023. So these are the three gun bills that will most likely become law. At the state capitol, Colorado senators were getting an earful Wednesday night about three major gun bills. All three advanced Wednesday night in a Senate committee. The bills would broaden red flag laws, allow victims of gun violence to file lawsuits against firearm dealers and manufacturers, and raise the age of firearm purchases to 21. These are bills that, if made law in the state, will face battles in court in the future. That did not stop a Senate committee from moving them along for consideration by the full chamber. The committee passed a bill expanding red flag laws to allow more people to request a court order preventing someone from purchasing a firearm. So, as you can see, Colorado legislators are still going to push anti gun legislation. The names of these legislators who sponsored this legislation and the names of every politician who votes for these bills needs to be remembered and needs to be shouted come election day. These people are absolutely despicable for trying to limit an ability of a law abiding citizen to defend themselves, especially in this day and age. Let's move on. Denver Post. Denver area businesses turn to private security amid homelessness crisis. March 7th, 2023. Fearful of rising crime and vagrancy, Denver area businesses owners are increasingly patrolling their property or hiring expensive security. So we kind of see a pattern here, right? Crime's out of control. Some Democrats think, hey, let's just not arrest criminals. We see, hey, armed citizens can defend our community if they're allowed to. Democrats say, well, hey, let's pass some anti-gun bills so they don't have the ability to. And Denver area businesses say, well, what else can we do except hire private security to help protect our business we've invested so much into. Chris Weigert manages 70 acres at the corner of Broadway and Alameda, with a Safeway and Sam's Club, a new apartment project that just opened. The site, known as Broadway Park, is a couple of miles south of downtown. But Weigert says he knows when the city breaks up a homeless encampment there. The big issue I've got is that when we do sweeps downtown or do pushes at Union Station, all it causes are people to push down the light rail corridors. He said, all we're doing is playing whack-a-mole. Weigert said he has lost three retail tenants, including an Ace Hardware store, because of crime and vagrancy. Employees are too scared to come to work, he said. Weigert is now paying $500,000 a year for private security to patrol the property and to deter vagrancy. Try to deter vagrancy. But he said he regularly sees excrement, prostitution, and open drug use. His hired security is sometimes too frightened to confront drug dealers. Wow. Wow. So this is going on across all of Denver, of course. We're seeing this in other areas as well, but very unfortunate. I mean, could you imagine what's happened to the city of Denver where businesses have to hire private security just to get employees to come to work, just to get visitors, shoppers, consumers to feel safe? Absolutely unbelievable. And of course, the solutions being presented by most of the Democratic politicians are not helping. So let's move on here. I want to end on some good news this week. It is springtime here in the Rockies. We're getting some really nice days out there. It's starting to feel like it. Can't wait for that nice warm weather. But it's also a great time to start thinking about planting your garden and getting ready for it. So another article from the Denver Post. It's time for spring seeding in Colorado. Here's how to start. March 7th, 2023. Spring is more than around the corner. For Colorado gardeners, it's within sight, and there's no time to waste. Here are some of the plant decision making items you'll need to make soon for the upcoming outdoor growing season. Number one, choose whether to start your own seeds in your home or purchase plants at a garden center or plant sale event. You certainly can do both. Starting seeds indoors makes dreaming of spring a reality. Plus, it puts you in the driver's seat of plant choices and it's not too straining on the pocketbook. Number two, if starting seeds, what kind of plants do you wish to grow? There are ornamental annuals that bloom during the current outdoor growing season, along with vegetables and herbs that can be planted out in the garden at the best time for growth and eating enjoyment. Perennial plants that grow for many years in a landscape might be on your list as well. So take a look at this. It's a great time of year when the snow is melting and the sun is shining and you can feel that warmth in the air. But also a great time, yeah, get your garden growing, get ready. So yeah, check that out. And then also I wanted to end here from Douglas County Newspress.net, a Colorado community media outlet, 2023 Farmers Market Directory for the Denver metro area. So this was posted on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, but it's a great list of some of the different farmers markets in the area. Farmers markets are a great way for you to meet people in your community, to establish relationships with food producers, and, maybe be an entrepreneur yourself. So check out this great list, and hopefully they add to it. Hopefully people get out in their farmers markets this year. Well, anyways, that's what I got this week, Colorado. So thank you very much for joining me. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.